Welcome to the NFL Saturday Podcast. This is Amp, and I'm here to catch you up on fantasy football for the week, and we'll have some fun along the way. Today, we are going to have a quick episode. Last week, I was sick, so I wasn't able to record, but this week, Scotty is busy, so he wasn't able to record. So it's going to be very quick, bare bones, not going to get into many topics, just talk about the previews for next week's Fantasy Football League, and then our typical segments. So first off, it is time for your fun fact of the day. And in honor of the Giants being unable to score an offensive TD, the NFL record for most quarters in a row without an offensive TD is 32. I looked this up, and I was looking for a specific team. I wanted to look up some more details about it, and I found absolutely nothing. I only found this because someone posted about the Browns having a 24 consecutive quarter without an offensive touchdown, and it wasn't the record, and they said the record was 32, but then there's no information on the 32, so I don't know if this is a real record. If it's not, then I guess the record could be 24 by the Browns in 2008, but yeah, I'm guessing the record is very old if it is 32, and I sadly can't find any information, but I did look up, and along the way got another fun fact which is kind of related, which is that out of all the teams in the NFL, the Jets have the most games where they scored 0 offensive touchdowns, with 111 games in their entire history. So, fun stat there. The Bills are in second place with 105, and the Bears are at 102. So I think that's interesting. I guess it makes sense. The Jets are there. They've been around incredibly long, and they've had some pretty bad years. So makes sense to me. Now it's time to get into the episode. And first off, it is time for your
Mr. Unlimited
moment of the week. And personally, I think this has to go to the Giants, who could not score an offensive TD to win the game twice from the 1 yard line. And if you didn't see this game, it was Giants versus Bills, a game that they should not have really been close to the Bills, but the Bills have been struggling, and the Giants were actually able to compete. It was really their defense that was doing well, and the offense was driving the ball down the field, and they actually got the ball to the 1 yard line at the end of the second half. And it was the first time they got to the 1 yard line, and Tyrod Taylor called an audible to run the ball, but there was only 14 seconds left, and they had no timeouts. So, yeah, very, very smart play, as you can tell. That's why it's part of this segment, of course. And sadly, they weren't able to run another play after that. So it was interesting. Not sure why he called an audible. I'm sure there's some story behind it. I'm sure he trusted Saquon Barkley, but yeah, it was 1st and goal. So they could have gotten a couple chances if they threw it, I think, at least. And yeah, I mean, as a Saquon Barkley owner, I was definitely disappointed, but also I had the Buffalo Bills in survival football. So I was a little stressed, especially at the end, because that was the first chance. And they somehow got another chance, and this would have won the game. They were down by 6, I believe. Please don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were down by 6, so they needed a touchdown to win it, a touchdown extra point. And they got one more opportunity in the fourth quarter, and it was an untimed down from the 1 yard line. So that means there was a penalty in the end zone with 0 seconds left. They got another play from the 1. And this time they did decide to throw it, but they threw it to Darren Waller, who could not catch it in the back of the end zone. And yes, it did look like there was a pass interference on the play, but still, I think it was just a hilarious way to end the game, because now the Giants have gone 13 quarters without an offensive TD. Yes, 13 quarters in a row. Not as impressive as the 24 or the 32, but still pretty dang impressive, especially in the modern NFL. And yeah, I think it was a fun fact, to say the least. Well, I guess it wasn't fun. You know what I'm trying to say. But it's now time to review our league. And sadly, Scotty will not be joining me for this, but I'll still go over his matchup anyway. So if anyone catching up at home wants to stay along with the standings, keep up to date, see how we're both doing. So I beat K Money's Moneymakers 130.9 to 77.82. Yes, I destroyed again. Last week I believe I lost, but obviously the week before that I dominated again. So it's been an interesting season. I've been very consistent. I've had a ton of points. I think my lowest scoring points was like 119 or something. I don't remember exactly. Maybe you listening at home remember. I could go back, but you know what? It's going to take too much effort at this time. So he had Fields, who got hurt, obviously. And then I had Kyron Williams and Tyreek Hill go off. So kind of just combined where I just got a ton of points and he got pretty unlucky. I scored the most points on the week as well. So it was a low scoring week, but since Kyron Williams, Tyreek went off, Jalen Hurts did good too. I mean, I just had some solid guys. Even Garrett Wilson had a good game. So yeah, solid all around. He had Stephon Diggs on Sunday night and CeeDee Lamb on Monday night, who actually both did good. But he was down so much. He had 33 points going into Sunday night with 2 players left. It was a brutal week for him. So, yeah, he needed 50 points from each of them, which, yeah, I wasn't sweating. So, yeah, fun week for me. I kind of getting used to the no sweats. I had another matchup in my other league where I was dominating. So, again, just a good week where I didn't really have to sweat that much. Especially, it's a relief after some of the early weeks in this league where I've just barely lost and I've gotten like the second most points in the week. But anyway, Scotty, it's time to go on to his matchup. And Scotty beat Alpha Kappa Olave 121.38 to 103.08. So a pretty big win for him as well. Again, not the biggest because I had an incredibly huge blowout, but he still had a good week. And A.J. Brown carried him again, but this time Kelsey stepped up because previously Achane was the one that was dominating for him, but now Kelsey finally having a big game, and I believe he's the tight end 1 on the year now, just like that, just 1 week, and he's the tight end 1. Pretty crazy. But as I expected, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago where I said Kelsey's going to come back to being the tight end 1. And he had Prescott and Palmer on Monday night, while his opponent only had Herbert, Justin Herbert, that is. So there wasn't a huge sweat because he was essentially up by, I believe it was 10, and you'd expect Herbert and Prescott to kind of have the same amount. And then Palmer, if Herbert has a really good game, Palmer's going to get a lot of that work as well. So it wasn't a huge sweat. There was some sweat, though, because, 20 points, and I think Palmer got 10. So I think it was only a 10-point lead going into Monday night. And I would say the only way he really lost was if Prescott got hurt. So thankfully that didn't happen for him. I would have liked the Cowboys to lose for personal reasons, but it was a good game and fun to watch down to the wire. But there's some other awards and the standings to go over, so I'll get into that. And the top 6 teams in the league are now Moose Mafia at 6-0. Yes, has not lost yet. Pretty crazy streak. Definitely gotten a little lucky, but honestly, their team is just so good. I think they deserve to be first place right now. I don't think there's any debating that. Hail to the Whatever is in second at 4-2. That's a surprising one. Future Mrs. Swift at 4-2 is in third. That's Scotty. He's in third place. Very impressive comeback. He started 0-2 and now he's 4-2. So complete turnaround. Jay Mucci 3142 is 4-2. That is a shocker to me. I think he has the 8th most points or 9th most points, and he's in the 4th place, which I would expect to kind of come back down to average, because especially those tiebreakers, like if I get the same record as him, I'll pass him as well. But hey, who knows? Maybe he'll keep winning. He's definitely gotten pretty lucky with some of the wins. I think he got like 80 points in a win one week. Definitely would have liked that as well. In 5th place, though, is me. LA Lambs at 3-3. So I'm right there. I actually have the second most points. So if somehow I win and the three people above me lose, I'll hop all the way up to second. So I'm really liking my spot right now. I'm confident as the season averages out and I hopefully get some luck or just having not unlucky games, essentially. Hopefully it will balance out and I'll kind of hop up the rankings. And then K Money's Moneymakers is 3-3 in sixth place as well, who's also pretty high scoring. So they might pass some people as well. But we'll see. I'm very curious how the season's going to play out. We currently have 6 2-4 teams. So that's pretty brutal if you're 2-4 because me and K Money's Moneymakers also have the tiebreaker in points. So they essentially would have to make up 2 games. But that said, I think there is a chance that someone that's 2-4 does pull it together. I mean, you saw Scotty, he was 0-2 and went all the way up to 4-2, and he just went on a streak. And then my mom, totally offensive, was 2-0, and now she's 2-4, which is pretty brutal. I'll talk about that game later that she had, the matchup. So yeah, tough loss for her. But overall, I have the second most points for, and also I have the second most points against. I used to have the most points against, but hail to the whatever passed me because I had a couple weeks where my opponent just did not score that many points. So I'm pretty close though. I think it's like 6 points away from the most points score or most points against. So yeah, I'm still right up there, still having my opponents score a lot against me, normally at least. But yeah, in general, it's a fun league. It's a competitive league. I'm really enjoying it, even though I've had some brutal losses, still enjoying it. And I mean, obviously it helps that I'm projected to be in the playoffs because playoffs are top 6. Just a reminder if you don't remember that. But now it's time to get into the awards. And the first award is the Surprise of the Week, which is the team that performed above projection the most. So essentially, whose team outperformed their projection by the most points. And this week it goes to Jay Mucci, 3142, who scored the 4th most points in the league with 115.14, which was 16.52 points above projection. So yeah, I mean, I think that is an issue with some of these teams. They don't have a lot of depth. So you can see the projection was below 100. And with 115, that's enough to be the most above projection. So I think as these bye weeks come in, I think some of these teams are going to balance out. But hey, their team stepped up anyway. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good game. Kenneth Walker had a good game. And then Jameson Williams had a good game as well. And it was really just one long touchdown pass, but it was a lot above projection. Like they also had Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes just went even with projection. So it didn't really help the award. So yeah, good week from their team. We'll see if it continues. It does seem like they're going to continue it though. I mean, I talked about them preseason. I didn't think they would be able to make the playoffs, but currently it's looking like they have a really good chance. There's only 8 weeks left, I believe. I think there's 14. So we'll see what happens, but 2 games above the 7th place is a good place to be in. So next is the team that let their owner down the most award. And this goes to the team that performed below projection the most. So this award goes to N22, whose team let them down. They scored the fewest points in the league with 63.02 points, which is 33.73 points below projection. Again, bye weeks are killing some of these teams, and unfortunately, it's not working out. They did play Roschon Johnson, who was out, which, I mean, that's on them. But they also had Devontae Adams, who didn't do well, and then Puka Nacua, who didn't do well. Then the third award goes to the closest match. which unfortunately my mom was on the receiving end because Hail to the Whatever beat Totally Offensive 104.14 to 101.44. Hail to the Whatever has had three, maybe four of the closest wins on each week. So just crazy. I don't want to say luck because their team is good. They have scored a lot of points, but it is luck that they're winning some of these close matchups. So we'll see if that continues. Their team's good, so I have confidence that they'll keep it up. But yeah, we'll see. On Monday, Totally Offensive had Pollard. So it actually did come down to the wire as well. And Pollard dropped that TD at the end of the game. And that cost her the game. It was a brutal way to end it. Definitely not a pretty sight to see a team lose like that. It always sucks. Unless you're the one beating them, you don't like seeing a team lose like that in fantasy football. Or in the NFL, really. But they won the game in the real NFL, but it really only affects us for fantasy, and that's where it hurts. That's where it hurts the most, is those fantasy managers who lost because Pollard dropped a TD. Ooh, brutal. Last award goes to the biggest blowout, which actually goes to me because I beat Moneymakers 130.9 to 77.82. We already talked about this, but yeah, he had Diggs Sunday night and CeeDee Lamb on Monday, but needed 50 points from each of them. So was not a sweat for me. And I had a good Sunday and Monday night. Now, I talked about this earlier, but it's going to be a very short episode. We're not going to do a main segment today because I want to save it for next week. And I wrote this whole thing down. I wanted to do trade talks where we talk about trade for targets and trade away targets, but I want to save it for next week. And I also had an Ask Anissa, which was related to it. So I'm going to save that for next week as well. And we're just going to go straight in to the Boat Club, where we pick one guaranteed bet this week and put our fake money where our mouth is. This is, of course, referring to the betting challenge that me and Scotty are doing, where we start with $100K. We either work it up to 1 million or we lose it and go to zero. And we have a punishment for the loser. And sadly, I am down a ton. Scotty is at 45K right now, and I am down at 160K. I was up at 225K, and I went on a 13-bet losing streak. Yes, a 13-bet losing streak. I've had a couple ones hit recently, but yeah, it's not looking good. I've had some football bets, so take that with a grain of salt. If you actually are listening to this and you actually are going to put money on this, you may want to reconsider. I don't know if you'll even get to this point before this game plays, but my 10K guaranteed bet is going to be on the Lions money line at plus 135. This profits $13,500. And when I'm looking at this line, I understand that the Lions are not good on the road, specifically Jared Goff. He is not as good for fantasy on the road, but I think they still should be favorites. I think this money line doesn't reflect properly how the teams have been playing. The Ravens have not looked great. They have not looked great. I don't care that they're at home. They just haven't looked great. And their defense, I think, is solid, but I don't think it's good enough to stop the Lions, even though the Lions are on the road. The Lions are getting Jahmyr Gibbs back, but they don't have David Montgomery. So I don't know exactly what that means for everyone involved. I just think I have this feeling that the Lions are a guaranteed win. They're a 5-1 team. They look really good on offense and defense, and the Ravens look a little shaky on offense. So I just have confidence that the Lions are going to win this. Now we can talk about some matchups before we close it out. Like I said, it's going to be a really, really short episode, probably less than 30 minutes. The First matchup, I mean, I'll just say this. There was not a ton of great fantasy matchups this week. It looks like, I mean, with the buys, not many matchups hitting the overs. I don't think there was a single 50 plus point over under. Maybe the Sunday night game, which we may talk about later. We'll see. We're talking about that later. We're talking about it later. But first, the first matchup I'm excited about is a Baltimore versus Detroit. And I talked about this just a second ago. I think the Lions win this, but I'm excited to see how these teams do, how the Lions do on the road. They're a good team. How the Ravens do, if they can bounce back. I'm excited to see it. I think it will be a very close game. I don't think it will be a blowout, but I do think the Lions win, and yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for fantasy reasons. That's kind of it. I'm not excited for the Ravens running backs, really. I'm really only excited for Mark Andrews, to be honest, and Lamar Jackson. And then on Detroit's side, I'm excited for Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably Sam Laporta, I guess. I mean, I'm not excited for him, but you're playing Sam Laporta. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, you're playing, but again, I'm not excited about him. And then Jameson Williams, I don't think he's going to be consistent, but you never know. You could play him as a dart throw. Hope he gets a long touchdown bomb like last week. He only got 2 catches, and he got like 13 points or something. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking will happen. I'm thinking Amon-Ra, great game, and the rest it'll be spread out, I think. I think Goff will be fine, but not great also. And I think the Lions win in a dirty game, but I think it's going to be an exciting game. Next matchup that I'm excited for is the Rams versus the Steelers. This one's in LA. I think, obviously, the Rams don't have a ton of home fans, but they've been amazing on offense. The Steelers' defense has been amazing. I'm a little worried for Stafford. I'm a little worried, but that said, the Steelers give up a ton to wide receivers. They got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, 2 of possibly the best receivers in the league. I mean, it could be there. I mean, I still think that you could say the Dolphins or the Eagles are the best 2 wide receiver tandems, but based on how they've been performing this year, Smith and Waddle haven't been consistent. Puka has been super consistent, and then there's Cooper Kupp. I mean, as soon as he comes back, he's a beast. So must start Cooper Kupp, and I still say must start Puka Nacua. He had the targets, he had the workload. They just didn't throw that much. So he had the target share, but they weren't throwing a ton last week. They were running a ton. Kyren Williams was out, and we don't even know what running backs they're going to use. So yeah, I'm starting my Rams receivers. I don't think I'm starting a Rams running back. I mean, it would probably be Zach Evans, but I'm probably staying away from that. For the tight end, I'm not starting either tight end because Freiermuth is also out. Stafford, I'm kind of forced to start because Daniel Jones is out, but this is a 2 QB league, by the way. So 2 QB, I'm kind of forced to start Sam Howell and Matthew Stafford. I don't mind starting Matthew Stafford. I think there's a chance he gets a couple touchdowns, but he's not going to have a 30-point game. He's just hopefully get 20 points. That's a really good game for him. It's not looking like a huge fantasy score, but he's going to probably have a safe floor. We'll see though. I mean, if the Steelers really blow him out, yeah, I could be wrong with that. You could start the Rams defense if you're in a defensive league. You could start the Steelers defense if you're forced to. I probably wouldn't start the Steelers defense if you can, but you never know. They could get a turnover. They could get a pick 6. They're so electric on defense. They have the big play potential. You never know. For running backs, if you're in a PPR, Jaylen Warren's all right, but I'm not starting Najee. Even in standard leagues, I probably wouldn't start Najee unless you're really forced to because of buys. For wide receivers, Deontay Johnson's coming back, and that's kind of interesting. I'm still probably not starting him, but if you have buys, again, you might have to start him, and he's not the worst. He's really not the worst. Next matchup, the Seahawks versus the Cardinals. And this one I'm excited for. I think the Seahawks destroy. I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm very excited for this. I think the Seahawks are going to get a lot of fantasy points. Kenneth Walker is going to do great. I think Tyler Lockett's going to do great. We'll see if any other wide receiver does great. JSN, who knows? Who knows what happens in Seattle for the wide receivers? Geno, he's been a little disappointing, but I think you could play him, especially with the buys. I'm not opposed to it, but yeah, I'm trying to look other ways at this point. He's just not doing great. Then for Arizona, I'm probably not starting anyone besides Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown, you could start Hollywood Brown. He's a pretty good play, but yeah, I'm not starting anyone else, I don't think. Now the last matchup that I'm excited about is the Eagles versus the Dolphins. I already talked about this, that I was excited for it for obvious reasons, and it's a high over under. But also, it's my Eagles. I'm excited for the Eagles. I want to see them play the Dolphins. I've already talked about the Dolphins. I think they're good. I think it's funny because I feel like no one rates the Dolphins properly. They either say they're the best offense ever or that they're a fraud. And I don't think either are true. I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're the best team in the AFC. I don't think they're the elite top 5, but I would say they're right outside of it, probably. And that's kind of how I feel. Maybe I'm wrong. I think who was it they played? Who was it? Who did they play? Was it the Bills? I don't even remember who they lost to, but it looked like they were just outmatched. And that's what I think I don't think that's going to happen necessarily now. I think the Eagles do have some holes on defense right now. I think hopefully they fill those holes by the end of the year, but currently the Dolphins could score a lot of points. I'm just excited. I think both teams are going to score a lot of points. And specifically, Tyreek Hill is going to go off. He's on the road. He does so well on the road. A.J. Brown's going to go off. I would like to see Goddard, and if Smith plays, I think he's playing. But if he doesn't play, obviously, you can take this away. But I hope he does good too. Hurts, I'm obviously hoping he does well. I have him in my fantasy team. And then Waddle, I need Waddle to step back up. He hasn't done well this year. He had I think it was one good game and then one okay game or maybe 2 okay games. He hasn't been good. He has not been his self from last year, and I'm hoping he steps back up. Obviously, Tua, I think he'll do all right. Maybe not for fantasy. He hasn't been great for fantasy the last couple weeks. He's had 20 points around max, which a little surprising. I mean, you'd think with such a high-powered offense, but it's just kind of the way that passing works. Unless you're throwing for 300-plus yards and 3 TDs, you're not going to get a ton of points, and they haven't been doing that. They've been running a lot. He's been throwing it to Tyreek Hill, but that's kind of it. He hasn't been getting as much work as you'd hoped. Running, obviously, I'm starting Mostert. I'm starting Swift. And yeah, that's it. I'm not starting Gainwell, obviously. But overall, very excited for this game. Real life purposes, I think there's a lot to prove for both teams. And yeah, I'm thrilled to see what happens in this one. Now, it's time to close out the episode. And again, I said it was going to be a short one, and hopefully I delivered, because now it's time for your strong opinion of the day. And that is that the worst team in the NFL is still the Bears.
Thank you for listening to the NFL Saturday podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and TikTok at NFL Saturday.